I feel like so comfortable with you. I feel like I'll always love you. I'll always love you. Always.
Couch Potato Diary Live starts right now. Welcome, Couch Potato Diary. 3 minutes after the Blue Jays game ended. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for joining today. Just bummed. Gone every emotion. Just in the last couple hours since I woke up. Every emotion going through me today, coming off of Game 3 of the World Series. Obviously, we'll discuss that, plus we have fantasy football to talk about as well. But, yeah. Anyway. Fuck. Couch Potato Diary is presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for the great Calgary swag. Hey, you know what makes people feel better in times like this? Little retail therapy. Plus, you buy the Jerome shirt and it helps charity with Kids Sport. So do that. And then I get the notification that you've bought a shirt and I feel better. So let everybody feel better with this. Yes, Toxic, yeah. The reason I'm so frustrated is I'm very upset at the creative direction of Monday Night Raw that I watched last night. What, was there something else on? Oh, I missed the football game. Darn. Also, this episode, not going to be a ringing endorsement of Swift Energy, but the only reason I'm able to function today is Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg, use the code PKPrimetime, get 25% off. Say if you spent 6.5 hours watching your favorite team lose in heartbreaking fashion, and you need a bit of a boost that tastes good as well, swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. So obviously, there's going to be a Blue Jays slant to this one. But also, if you are here for the fantasy football stuff, we will be getting into the Fantasy Football Waiver Wire today. So send in your questions and your thoughts there, and or at any point, and I'll get to whatever you want to talk about. So let's go over it together. The Toronto Blue Jays lose Game 3 of the World Series, a classic by any measure, except for the one that Blue Jays fans want to measure it by, and that is wins and losses. It is now desperation time for the Blue Jays, and it's kind of their fault. So let's talk about it. It was an epic game, and look, we've been saying we want the Blue Jays to be playing meaningful baseball. They are playing in the World Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it doesn't get any more meaningful than that. And I hated every minute of that. That's an exaggeration. I didn't. It was a wild ride last night for all of us who were watching, right? And how many times, Blue Jays fans, have we watched those games and other teams have them, right? How often have we watched the Rangers and the Cardinals have the classic game that they did and just be kind of laughing along and enjoying it and then thinking to ourselves, boy, can't even begin to imagine what it would be like to watch your team in that atmosphere, in that game. Well, now we got it. As the Blue Jays play in, if I could put emotions aside, genuinely one of the wildest, craziest, and one of the best baseball games in the history of the World Series. And it's cool that to watch your team play in it. It sucks to watch your team lose it. I have right now on the Twitch poll and on YouTube in a poll as well. Can you still enjoy the highs from last night? Because there were some. We'll get to them in a little bit. That would be bearing the lead if we just started off with, hey, there were some good moments, but I'm genuinely curious. If you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comments. But if you're watching now, let me know in the chat or let me know in the poll. Can you still enjoy the highs from last night? Because this was a really, really, really exciting, entertaining, insane baseball game that the Blue Jays played in. But it's still heartbreaking. And Toxic makes a good point in the chat. Can one of the options in the poll be ask me in 2 months? And that's kind of where I am at right now. I did have a couple moments out, the sun just rising, over the Rocky Mountain. Well, not over the Rocky Mountains. That'd be the other way around. But the sky's at least orange and beautiful. And looking out and dogs running around, not a care in the world. Probably running off some built-up tension that she had last night because one of her owners was just yelling, "Fuck!" at the TV for 6.5 hours last night. So she's going around and you know what? Like, yeah, that sucked. But like, I got to watch the Blue Jays in a classic World Series game, calling my parents at high moments. So then avoiding calling my parents for about 3 hours because there weren't any. I was like, that was really fucking cool, man. That was really, really cool. And then you get inside and okay, you know what? I think I'm coming out of it. I think I'm coming out of it a little bit. And then someone posts a clip and you see Davis Schneider rounding third, and then you see the throw waiting for him at home. And it's like, nope, can't enjoy it right now. So I thought I had a moment of clarity. I thought I had a moment of, okay, I'm over it. We can move on. Boom. And then you get a little reminder of what happened in that game. And it just turns back into anger and disappointment. And I will say, like, I can be an emotional person. And I come on here and I talk really fast and I talk with a lot of emotions and I can get fired up about things. But generally speaking, people may not believe this. Generally speaking, I don't let sports affect my day-to-day too much. Like, it is my life, obviously. Like, I mean, look back there. And that, it would look all like that even if I didn't have this. I have dedicated my life to covering sports, talking about sports, enjoying sports. So obviously, like, there is a part of it there. But for the most part, like, if my team loses, I'll be down for a bit. And then, okay, let's get something to distract me and move on. Like, let's go for it. Like, I am, because it's weird because anxiety-wise and everything, I'm all over the charts. But when it comes to sports stuff, I tend to be able to just like, okay, let's go for it. This one's going to stick with me for a while. This is the most emotionally taxed I have been after watching a baseball game or any sporting event for a really long time. I would say, and this isn't going to be a universal one, but I would say the closest for me is as a Saskatchewan Roughriders fan, 2009, when they won. And it was, oddly enough, kind of a similar situation, not the longest game in the history of the Canadian Football League, but it was the Riders were the underdogs. They were taking on Montreal, who were the Dodgers of the time, and they had them beat, and then it was too many men on the field, and then all of that. And then I was working at TSN at the time and had to work on the fucking post-game show after it, so just got to relive it over and over and over again. But that's about as close as it has been for me. Otherwise, like, even the first couple of games of the Dodgers series, it was like, okay, well, let's watch the game tonight. But this one is just, it's sticking with me. And it's going to be one of those ones that we think of for a really, really, really long time. And because there are a number of different factors that you can point to. Obviously, when a game goes 18 innings, you had chances to win this game. And there are a number of reasons why it did not go the Blue Jays' way. But I've asked this in the chat on YouTube. And I guess for the rest of you, you can answer along as well. Or for those watching after in the comments. I personally think the Blue Jays lost this game more than the Dodgers won this game. I think when you look at some of the mistakes that Toronto made, I think that they did more to harm themselves than I think the Dodgers did to help themselves, if that makes sense. Toxic agrees with me in the Twitch chat. And I think the biggest culprit is the bad send on Davis Schneider. And look, there are times where you can say, you know what, make the perfect play. That's fine. And the Dodgers did. For the record, they did. And that is part of it. That send makes sense against the Yankees. We talked about it in the Yankee series, where I am willing to bet that you're not going to hit on the 3-play parlay that is field the ball cleanly in the outfield, throw it to the cutoff guy who throws it to home plate, and they get the tag. I was willing to bet that the Yankees were going to screw something up in that whole exchange. That I felt very confident in. The Mariners, ugh. The Dodgers, no. Like, Tommy Edman makes a couple of really good plays in this game. The IKF one, that sucks, but I can see where he was coming from. That is being aggressive on the bases, and that is like making a guy run over, make a sliding play, and then throwing it across the diamond. Like, that's a hell of a play. That one I didn't have as much of a problem with. But this one with Schneider, this isn't, oh, well, Dodgers made a perfect play. Make a perfect play. When Smith catches that ball and he turns to tag Schneider, Schneider is not in the screen. Like, that's not make them make a perfect play. They could have bobbled it, thrown it home. Will Smith could have had it get stuck in his mask, pull it out of his mask, put it into his glove, and still had time to tag Davis Schneider. It's a bad send. It's a horrendous send in that situation. And not even the Vladdy part of it, because Vladdy was going to get as many swings in that at bat as I would. He was going to get walked 100%. But still, it's the bases loaded with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa coming to the plate. You take your chances with the bases loaded in that situation. I don't get it at all. It was aggressive for the sake of being aggressive, and this is where this team has fallen into some traps in the past. And I appreciate aggressive base running. I celebrated it against the Yankees, but the Blue Jays have, at times, run into some really stupid outs. And when you think of the Twins series a few years ago, the wild card round, where Vladdy gets picked off at second, they've done so at some really inopportune times. Ernie Clement did in game number 2. It's one thing to be aggressive. It's another thing to be dumb. Ernie Clement getting thrown out at third base in game 2 was dumb. David Schneider getting thrown out at home plate with second and third and 2 out it is dumb. Like, I don't get it. And I can understand again what they're saying on the broadcast, because you are saying, yeah, make them make a perfect play. But they made a perfect play and then it wasn't close. It's one thing if it's make a perfect play and then it's bang bang at home plate. Like, Teoscar Hernandez going to third base with Vladdy throwing him out. That is make them make a perfect play. Vladdy made a 1-of-1 play on that to get the out. That is one where it's like, okay, you tip your hat and you move on. This one, there was some margin for error there with how off Schneider was. And Toronto, it does feel like they can just go, this is what we do, so this is the blanket of all situations. And it was the pitching changes and everything in the wild card rounds when they were struggling, and now it is aggressive base running. We always take the extra base. We always do this. It's like, well, sometimes you shouldn't. You know, it would be like, it's a horrible comparison, but it's like, you know what? I always speed. I think speed limits are dumb. So you know what? I'm just not a ton, but I go 10 over every time. And then you see 4 cop cars with radar lined up on the other side. It's like, nope, this is what I do. And just, okay, you're going to get caught. Bad example, unrealistic, but I'm hurting today, so just let me have this one. It was just bad. Just because the Dodgers made a really good play doesn't excuse the fact that you made a really, really bad call in that situation. And the other, I guess, bit of reasoning for that was brought up on the broadcast was, well, I mean, the Jay, there's 2 outs, and the Jays, like, you've already strung a couple of hits together. Do you really think you can do that more? That's what this team's done all year. And we'll get to that part again in a second here. But that's what they've done all year. That has been the calling card of this team, is this next man up thing, and just keep the line moving, keep the line moving, keep the line moving. So yeah, being aggressive and going first to third on a bloop to right field, go for it. But trying to score with Davis Schneider, who, bless his heart, we're not going plus speed here. You know, if you're sending Miles Straw in that situation, fill your boots. You know, if you are sending one of your speed guys around, then okay. But David Schneider isn't that guy. And to trust that that's going to work and to be out by that much is just horrendous. Horrendous call that ends up costing the Blue Jays in this game. The other one is, well, the other big one, I think, was pulling Barger. And I think this is being like too cute by a half with this, where they bring in Miles Straw to pinch run. And if I'm not mistaken, Barger's at first at the time. I understand the reasoning behind this one more than the Schneider send. I understand, you get some speed out there. We are a bit of a limited lineup. And so let's try to manufacture something in this situation. My issue is, unless you're going to steal second with Schneider, or sorry, with Miles Straw, the advantage, I think, of bringing in a speedy guy in that spot kind of goes away. Barger isn't slow. You're not bringing this in for Anthony Santander. He's not a burner, but he's faster than David Schneider, I think. I haven't looked at the baseball savant stuff to see sprint speeds or all of that, but he is a pretty quick dude. And so I think any play that Miles Straw was going to score on, Addison Barger, from first, Addison Barger would have as well. If you get Barger to second and Straw comes in then, that makes a little bit more sense because there are some singles that Straw is going to score on that Barger just wouldn't. But when you bring him in to pinch run at first, anything to the gap is scoring Barger. Like, Straw isn't scoring from first on a bloop single. He might go first to third, so maybe you get a bit of advantage. But this is where it is just okay, well, we just need the faster guy out there. But what advantage does that really give you? Because anything that Straw is scoring on, again, a double or anything like that, Barger would have as well. So I don't think you really gain that much by bringing the speedier guy in that situation. If you want to bring him in again when Barger's at second because a single could score him, fine. But a double scoring Barger, just like a double is scoring Straw, and nothing else is scoring Straw. So what are you really gaining in that situation? I thought it was a really bad move, and then it gets piled on because every time Straw came up after that was a high leverage big moment at bat that it really would have helped to have Addison Barger in the ballgame for. And so that was a really, really tough spot. And I think a miscue by John Schneider, just kind of going with a default, we just need the faster guy in there. I think that was trying to manufacture things. And honestly, I think it was a bit of over-managing from John Schneider, who, we'll talk about him in a second. I think he did better than people are giving him credit for. But that was one where it just didn't work out in the way that the Blue Jays needed it to. The other miscue, we actually have a couple others that I want to get to. But first, misery loves company. So share this video with your Blue Jays fans, friends, and we can all just wallow in self-pity together around this game. The other, I think, real big one that's going to stick with me is Nathan Lucas swinging at ball 4 3 times against Clayton Kershaw. And I understand it's Kershaw out there. And I think that's where Lucas kind of got into it a little bit. But like, it's 3-2, and baseball's a tough sport to watch with slow motion because these guys have to react like that. Like the reaction time you need is insane. But to quote Don Draper, that's what the money's for. Not that Lucas is making a lot of it, but when you get to this level, you kind of have that part figured out, right? So when you are with 3 balls and 2 strikes, following a pitch down to the point where you're in a squat position and you're reaching and swinging, I think you can take that pitch, you know? And I do think that there was a little bit of being in awe of Kershaw. I think there was a little bit of recognizing the moment and trying to be that guy. And I think it was just, he lost the plot on that, Nathan Lucas. And so that was a big one because Kershaw getting to the Dodgers bullpen was always the goal, right? But in that game, the way it was going, it felt like, okay, these guys are dealing, but if you can get to Kershaw, he's the one that you can get because of the ineffectiveness that he has at this point. And you got him. I don't care it's a lefty-lefty. I don't care anything else. You had him. Had him. And you let him off the hook multiple times, swinging at ball 4 with Vladdy coming up. And they love to say on the broadcasts that Lucas knows his job is to keep the line moving and get Vladdy there. And it seemed to me like he kind of lost it in that moment and lost what he was supposed to do. And I think that is part of a bigger picture of why this game went south for Toronto. Understanding that they don't have the big bashers in the lineup. Like, someone posted it. I retweeted it after, or reposted. Sorry, X. The Blue Jays ran out a spring training lineup that looked better than the lineup they had by the end of this game today. I guess it was today. Yes, by the end of game 3, that lineup looked like a spring training lineup and not a good one. So what frustrated me was the Blue Jays went away from what makes them successful. They didn't strike out a ton still, which was great. put a lot of balls in play. That's fine. But it did seem like, really, when it got down to Vladdy and the Blowfish, it felt like everyone was trying to be the hero. I think that's where Nathan Lucas kind of fell into it a little bit, where he was trying to get the hit. He forgot what his job was. He forgot that he was supposed to be the line mover. He forgot that he was supposed to be the one to set up the guy who has hit the most home runs in postseason history for the Toronto Blue Jays, who's coming up behind you, who is playing at an absurdly high level. Not in this game, but for the most, your job is to get him to the plate. Your job is, however that happens, your job is to get that guy to the plate. And I think with the way that Lucas was chasing those pitches and everything like that, it felt like Lucas was trying to be the hero. And I think Ernie Clement fell into that a lot, where he's trying to drive the ball. That's not their game. It's fun that Ernie Clement hit a couple of home runs, but Ernie Clement, when he hits home runs, he's reaching, and it's the flip. Right, that one against the Yankees, it wasn't an MLB The Show perfect, or anything like that. It was a, oh shit, that ball left. That's what it was. So for Ernie Clement to be up there and hero swinging drove me up the wall. And everyone on the Blue Jays was doing it. Basically from the 13th on. From that Lucas at bat on, the Blue Jays were trying to win this game with one swing. And that's never been the way that they do it. But they do fall into this a bit. I do think there are some times where they believe their own hype, read some of the headlines, and see that, okay, we're this team. I'm Nathan Lucas. I'm the Cinderella story of this whole thing. I can come out and really make this. And people forget what their job is. Just string some hits together. Just put a couple good at-bats up. That Dodgers bullpen should not have done that to the Blue Jays yesterday. I don't care that it was Ty France and Heineman coming in. Heineman had the best WAR on the team through July this year. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's not as much of one as you think. He was a very productive backup catcher for Toronto. And to have him up there and just swinging for the fences, and Lucas swinging for the fences, and they all end up as just lazy fly balls to left, center, and right. That's just never been this team's game. And so I think you had a bunch of guys who were trying to be the hero who aren't in the hero role. You have to understand what your role on this ball club is. I will never forget when teams would win the World Series, they would send out the DVD of the season and of the World Series. And on the season one from 93, when Joe Carter comes up, there's two guys on. Why are the two guys on? Because Paul Molitor, one of, unquestionably, the great hitters of his time and maybe of all time. Not Mount Rushmore guy, but he's at least on a list of one of the best hitters in the history of this sport. He comes up with a runner at first, and I think there's two out at that time. Either way, he comes up with this situation. The Jays are down by one. There is a runner at first. He has the opportunity to live out the dream of every child who has ever picked up a ball, tossed it, and tried to hit it. He has a chance to win the World Series. And he goes up there, and in the interview, and now maybe this is just him being able to say this after the fact, but I don't believe that's the case. He goes out in the interview and says, it took everything in me to not try to win the World Series here, but that's not my job. My job is to just get on and set the table for the guy who's had 100 RBIs in every season he's ever existed as a human being. So let me do that. The Blue Jays needed more Paul Molitor. Instead, they all tried to be Joe Carter, and there wasn't a Joe Carter in the bunch, aside from Vladdy last night, who also had a bad game. That is a big part of this as well, is that the dude on the other side, Shohei, has the greatest game in the history of the World Series, and Vladdy's sitting here at 1 for 8. Now, it's hilarious because you see that, and his numbers, he's still hitting 400 for the playoffs because he's been insane. And so I'm not going to be, well, you know what? Vladdy needs to be better. He does, but we can give him a break because he has been absurdly good this whole playoff. But they needed him last night, and he wasn't there for them also. The very, very, very frustrating part of this whole thing is that the Blue Jays did what they were supposed to do. Glasnow mowed him down in the first with 8 pitches, but then they worked it. They were able to work these counts. They were able to get his pitch total up. He threw 70 pitches over the course of 3 innings. They got to the bullpen in the 5th inning. And they did get some runs off of them, right? Like they were able to get a couple of those big moments and capitalize. It's just they kept throwing to Shohei, and he kept absolutely drilling baseballs out. That was the other one. Pitching to Shohei in a 1-run ball game was a mistake. And when he's the potential tying run, you can't. That one, like I don't begrudge someone for pitching to a player in that spot, but Dominguez, you can't leave that middle. And Dominguez had a pretty bad game. Like control-wise, he was all over the place. So, I mean, there is that situation, but you got to where you wanted to get to. You had the Dodgers bullpen, what was it, 4 2/3? So at the time, we assumed that they needed to get 16 outs. Now, that turned into, what would that be, 43? But at that moment, it was, you need 16 outs from this bullpen? What are we doing here? And so, like, that was the chance. They did everything they were supposed to do, and then it all fell apart. That was the game to be able to do that in. Back in the chat, Toxic on the Lucas thing. Yeah, that was a bad at bat. Oh, it was so bad. It was so frustrating to see that. You still haven't talked about the terrible Bo error, which cost them a run, probably. Yes, that's true too. I was going to do the umpiring thing at the end, but I'll go for it now. That was, and I want to state it. I know I got the Blue Jays on here. You can see there's a Blue Jays hat in the background. It is obvious where my allegiances lie. I want to state for the record, the umpiring was not the reason that the Blue Jays lost. It was not the second biggest reason the Blue Jays lost. It was not the third biggest reason that the Blue Jays lost. But that was genuinely one of the worst officiated games I've seen at a championship level in my life. And I am talking about like provincial baseball that I played in as a kid to this. Like that was horrendous. And I'm getting on Nathan Lucas for chasing some of those strikes and expanding the zone too much and chasing ball 4 a few times. A couple of those, I could justify it because the strike zone was so all over the place. You had no idea where it was. And it wasn't consistent because you would have one on the inside of the zone and they would call it a ball. Really bad call. And then, like, you would get, it wasn't even borderline pitches that were missing. It was, like, I wish I had a baseball around here. But this was a long time ago. But at an umpiring clinic, we were kind of told, if you want to, if the baseball's touching, you basically have, like, the strike zone and then a full baseball's width away. Basically, if you can get it in there and just kind of half touching the zone, you can get that. Some guys, even on the outside, will give you a second one just because pitching's hard at those lower levels, whatever. But like these were bad. These were a couple of balls out of the zone. And the Varsho one was inexcusable. And it was obviously an umpire who was upset at Dalton Varsho, assuming that it was a walk, and then calling him for a strike. And I saw something today. Well, Varsho clearly could hear that the umpire said ball, or said strike, and he kept going to first anyway, so this is on Varsho. Which I kind of understand a little bit. I do want to state for the record that I don't know what it was, whether it's just the Sportsnet broadcast that we got in Canada or if they had it on Fox as well, but that ump was either mic'd up or very, very close to the field mic last night. And so with how loud that stadium can be, I genuinely think we could hear the umpire better than Dalton Varsho could. And to him kind of have that half kind of, okay, yeah, did you? No? Okay. Like, it wasn't an obvious, or something like that. It was strike two. Like, it was just a quick little whatever on a pitch that no one had any right to think it was that. Now, it looks really bad on Bo getting thrown out there, but I don't know what he is supposed to do in that spot. Like, you're never, until you have someone just stand on first base until Varsho gets there and then you start your trot to second, like, that is a situation that comes up 1,000 times a year in a baseball game, and that never plays out in that way. And so you see Varsho give a bit of a hesitation and then toss the bat, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess it was, because there wasn't a demonstrative or anything like that. you can see where Bo gets caught up in that. And so that was so infuriating because Varsho does then get on and Kirk does get a hit and it would have scored or at least loaded the bases and kept that pressure on. And instead it kind of takes away from that moment and it puts you in a bit of a combative state already. And it puts you just behind the eight ball, it feels like, all game. And so to have a game go to extra innings to the extent that it did, and you have an umpire's call that so blatantly cost you a run, it gets very frustrating. I will say, I don't think this was an umpire who was playing favorites. I think he just sucked. Like I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse. He was just really bad at his job. It wasn't, he wasn't favoring the Blue Jays. He wasn't favoring the Dodgers. We got a few on the Blue Jay side too that helped out. Like it was just a horrendous strike zone, in an otherwise beautiful baseball game last night. The other thing I do want to mention is that there's a lot of people putting this on John Schneider today. I don't think this is all on Schneider. It is very easy to look at the lineup that was out there for the Jays when the game ended and say, hey, maybe the manager did a bit too much in this spot, but Springer got hurt. So you're not that tough situation. Can't do it. Bo is definitely not healthy. And you put Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in at a time where it kind of felt like Bo was done for the night, right? Like in a regular game, IKF may not have come to the plate again. Or if he did, it would have been late and you would have had a couple of things happening there anyway. That was the time to bring Bo out. And like he has a play there where did Vlad score on there or did he go first to third? But there was an obvious double that Bo stretched into a single. Like he is not healthy. I will say he looked good swinging. Like the bat is back a little bit. Now, I think they will see how he reacted to breaking balls compared to how he reacted to fastballs, and he's not going to see another fastball this series, but the bat is there, the legs aren't. They just aren't. And so when you are getting into a tight situation, pulling him for a runner makes all the sense in the world. The Barger one, it's a really bad call. And I think that cost them. 100% I do. But the other ones, and Kirk, like people are getting on him today. I don't know if I was just looking too much into it, if I was tired, if I was hallucinating. Kirk was obviously hurt, right? Like it did not look comfortable for Alejandro Kirk. Now, it never does, just based on the construction of that human. But he didn't look comfortable. He looked like something was obviously bothering him. And so that was the time to get him out of there. So the moves that people are getting on John Schneider for are all ones that I think was kind of taken out of his hands anyway, with the exception of the Barger one. The only other, I guess, scenario that he may have mismanaged in hindsight is Bassett only going one inning. But at that time, you're not managing that assuming that this game's going 18 innings. If you knew that, then yeah, you keep Bassett in for 6, right? And you try to save as many guys as you can. But Bassett's not really stretched out in that way. Like he is, again, like we talked about with Bo, these would be rehab assignments for him. Instead, it's against the Dodgers in the World Series in a bullpen role. So he's not stretched out for 4, 5, 6 innings. Now, neither was Lauer, and then all of a sudden he puts on a heroic performance. But Bassett did the job that he needed to do. Dominguez wasn't as effective as he needed to be, and you probably weren't going to get another inning out of him like that. And so you needed that bridge. And so, like, yes, in hindsight, it would have been good for Bassett to eat 2, 3, 4 innings. But if the results play out differently and Bassett serves one up and all of a sudden Teoscar Hernandez is trotting around the bases, then everyone's sharing their Zach Britton memes saying, oh, hey, look at that, a game-winning home run in a playoff game, and the closer is sitting on the bench. That one, maybe you could have used someone else in that spot, but you didn't trust anyone else there. Bassett is the guy in that bullpen, in that spot that you trust in that leveraged of a situation. In hindsight, yeah, extra innings for him would have been good, but he did the job that he needed to do and that the Blue Jays needed him to do at the time. So that one I don't get on him for at all. This has been a long segment. Toxic was saying that it's going to take an hour to talk about this game. We'll probably get there. But I do want to state there were some highs for Toronto in this game. And some things that, again, once the dust settles on all of this, I will remember for the rest of my life. The Vladdy throw to first base. to make Jimenez to get to that ball, throw it across the diamond in any sort of a way. Vladdy to recognize what is happening, get it, go across, and throw a dart across the infield while falling and put it in a perfect spot. Clement with the perfect tag, boom, baby, and he's out. Perfect play. And just another one. Like, it's the Altuve play. It's all of that. It has been so great. And I know he needed to be better in that game. But it's been so great to see everyone recognizing the immense amount of talent that Vlad Guerrero Jr. has. And everything that he has going into being this high caliber of a player. And because when he signs that contract, everyone's talking about how it's an overpay, $500 million. I even said on here, maybe it's a little bit of an overpay, but you can't let that guy go. And he has now backed it up. He is into another tier of baseball player with what he has done in this postseason. And that defensive play is up there as well. Like, just an unbelievable moment in a postseason full of them for him. Max Scherzer was excellent. You got everything you could have wanted out of Max Scherzer in this game. They pulled him at the appropriate time. All of it. I thought he was great. I thought he was really, really excellent. And to get the 2 starts that you got out of him is something that this team, I think, should be celebrating. And then Eric Lauer, the job that he did coming in when, like, he was one of their best starters, and certainly one of their more consistent starters for a pretty good stretch there. But then because of the baseball reference page and everything like that, he gets tossed aside and he goes to the bullpen. He's not stretched out, and he comes in and has we are talking about him today in glowing terms. People are buying Eric Lauer jerseys today if the Blue Jays are able to win that ball game. It was incredible to see him do that. And then Alejandro Kirk is having the series of a lifetime again with a couple of big hits. Like, he was locked in against Glasnow yesterday or earlier today. And to be able to have him in the lineup when they need that from him has been great. And another just leveling up moment for him. So there were some bright moments for the Blue Jays in that game. It's just going to take us a long time to remember them and to think fondly on them. So those are my Blue Jays thoughts for game number 3. We're going to have a lot more on game 3 coming up here in just a matter of moments. But again, we do stream these live multiple times a week here on YouTube, youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary. We're close to getting that thing removed, but also streaming these on Twitch and Kick. The next live stream, unless the game tonight is insane, we're not going to do a live stream on Wednesday. That's kind of my catch up on everything else day. But we will do another live stream 10 a.m. on Thursday. We'll either be talking about the Blue Jays on the brink of elimination, or we're going to be talking about Toronto with an opportunity. Oh man, we might be talking about. All right, so Thursday we're doing the live stream Thursday, and we'll be talking about the Blue Jays, and we'll see if my heart can take it. We may have a bonus one on Wednesday. We will see how this game goes. But yeah, make sure wherever you are watching, hit the follow button, hit subscribe. All that stuff really helps out a lot. We have Jonna in the YouTube chat asking a fantasy football question. I promise I will get to that. You're going to have to sit through a little bit more baseball, but I promise I will get to the fantasy football question there. And again, I apologize if I'm saying the name wrong, but Jonna on YouTube asking a fantasy football thing. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But it wasn't just the Blue Jays playing in Game 3 of the World Series. The LA Dodgers win another classic with another heroic moment from Freddie Freeman. LA now feels like they are in the driver's seat for this World Series, and it is all because, once again, they just had huge performances all throughout the lineup, including probably the best player that's ever lived. So the LA Dodgers are now 2 wins away from back-to-back World Series championships, and we had said on the show going into Game 3 that the reason for a lot of optimism for the Dodgers is they have a 1-1 tie. They've taken home field advantage away from the Blue Jays, and we haven't had the big Shohei game yet. Well, we've had the big Shohei game now, as Ohtani puts on the performance of a lifetime, going 4 for 4 and then getting walked all of the times after that, setting World Series and just baseball records for reaching base in one game. It was, again, if I was a fan of any other team, that would have been awe-inspiring to watch. And even I don't share the same vitriol towards Shohei as a lot of Blue Jays fans do. I am mad at the situation. I am mad at how close I felt like we were to having him. And so, yes, Shohei coming out here and curb stomping my favorite team after breaking my heart 2 years ago, not coming to Toronto, and I have to do the devastating thing of clearing out the cart when I had 3 jerseys lined up ready to order. Yeah, that doesn't feel great. But I don't know how you can watch this guy and do anything but be in awe of what he can do. When he was up and the Blue Jays were pitching to him in the late innings, I have never been so sure of anything in my life other than Shohei was going to get a big hit in that moment. Like, it's Thanos. He is inevitable. There's no doubt it. He is inevitable. It is like nothing I've ever seen before, and I've been watching the sport. I'm turning 36 in a month, and I have been watching it my entire life. I have never seen anything like this before. And the only thing that was keeping him out of like Mount Rushmore type conversations was a lack of playoff success with the Los Angeles Angels. Well, now he is coming off of like a 50-50 season last year and then an incredible run through the playoffs and into the World Series. This year, it hasn't been a great playoff for him, but there are 2 of the greatest games anyone has ever played in postseason history that we are debating about, and they're both him. So if he goes out, unless he comes out and gives up 115 runs in the first 2 innings against the Blue Jays tonight, he's going to win World Series MVP. Even if the Jays win, based on that game alone, he's probably going to win World Series MVP. And if the now I don't want to say this because I'm not going to tell it, but if the Dodgers do win this, it's back-to-back championships for him. It is epic performance after epic performance. It's 100 MVP awards in a row. What else does this guy have to... Like, we are already in GOAT conversation with him, and he still has a ton of baseball left to be played. It is remarkable what this guy is doing. But it wasn't just Shohei last night. Obviously, Freddie Freeman gets the big hit, very similar to game one. Game one? Right, yeah, against the New York Yankees. Took him a little bit longer this time, but it was it felt like at some point it was going to happen. But it's something I've talked about for a bit with this team. I never felt comfortable last night when it was going through. Like you think when you get through Shohei, Betts, Freeman, you can at least a little bit. But then it's Will Smith, who really thought he ended it. Joe Davis thought he ended it. I thought he ended it. Max Muncy, who almost ended it again when he hit one out of Dodger Stadium foul. And then you had Teoscar, who I was convinced was going to. There was no doubt in my mind it was going to be Teoscar Hernandez who was going to be able to get that big hit to give the Dodgers the win in this game. And then you get past him, and you feel a little bit better when against Kike Hernandez. But Kike is one of, like, I've said it before, I don't fully believe in clutch, but he's the good argument against me, because he is average as a baseball player, as a Major League Baseball player, slightly above average. As a playoff performer, the guy is nails. And so even then you don't feel great. You feel good when Pages comes to the plate, and that's it. And the only reason you still get stressed is because if he gets on, it's basically a double because you're then walking Shohei. Like, there's just no chance to rest at all in this lineup. And then to top it all off, they made some fantastic defensive plays last night with Edman making those 2 excellent plays. The throw across to get IKF at third, and then the dart on the relay from Teoscar to seal that game away, really, it felt like, and get David Schneider out. Not seal it away. They played a full baseball game after that, but still made that excellent play there. Freddie Freeman made a few really good stretches and very good plays at first base. Pages covers a lot of ground in the outfield as well. Like, they were just solid. Even Sasaki on that chopper over his head, snaring it and then rolling it across to Freddie Freeman. They played solid all night. And Toronto is so good at putting pressure on teams to the point where you end up kind of beating yourselves. And the Dodgers just don't. And Toronto, I think, has to adjust now to LA and don't assume that they're going to make the mistake and beat themselves, because they're too good to do that. And then the big thing, the bullpen was amazing for LA. For that to be the weak spot. And my wife, who, like, watching these games with her, I was saying, like, when Glasnow came out, I was like, this is huge. Because this is not a good bullpen. And this is what you want to do. And this is the situation you wanted it in. This is perfect for the Blue Jays. And then when we get to, like, the 14th inning and she's kind of stopped watching, and I'm walking over and like, 15th, she said, is this still that bullpen that you wanted the Jays to get to? It's like, yes. Yes, it was. But, like, Klein last night, amazing last name, comes up with just a unbelievable performance in the bullpen for the Dodgers. But everyone delivered. Kershaw comes up big. Trinan comes up with some big moments. Everyone in that bullpen delivered in a very big way. And basically everyone on that team delivered in some way, giving the Dodgers a 2-1 series lead. If you like what we're doing here, but want to bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go, just search Couch Potato Diary in podcast form on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. Jonna, again, I promise I'm getting to the fantasy football question here in a sec, but we do have to preview Game 4 tonight. Coming off of a marathon, 18-inning, record-breaking classic, the Dodgers and Blue Jays play again mere hours after one of the craziest baseball games you will see. So, key number 1, who's awake? Key number 2, let's talk about it in our Game 4 preview. Game 4 goes tonight. It feels like the series has already been 4 games because it has. Just Game 2 was 2 of them. Luckily for the Blue Jays, though, it doesn't count as 2 wins, and they are back at it tonight. Toxic in the chat asked earlier, I asked if yesterday if the game was a must-win. I think that turned into a must-win. That is fair. I do think that around the 12th or 13th inning, that became a must-win game for the Blue Jays, and they didn't. And we talked about all the reasons why they didn't. I think it goes without saying, tonight is a must-win for Toronto, which is tough because you're going against Shohei Ohtani. And I do think the way the playoffs have played out, I do think that the Blue Jays platoon setup is better against lefties than it is against righties. Better against righties than it is against lefties, I should say. It's better when Lucas is in the lineup. So it's better against the righties than it is against the lefties. But I don't think this is a game where, it's an X factor this and an X factor that. And it could play out that way. For the Blue Jays, this needs to be a game where the big guys step up. Shane Bieber needs to be more Game 3 Shane Bieber than Game 7 Shane Bieber from the American League Championship Series. He needs to go out and dust off that Cy Young and be that guy again. He's going to be required to pitch deep into this ball game. If he's given up 10 runs, he's going to be required to pitch deep into this ball game based on the usage of everybody last night for Toronto. I think he has to get off to a good start. That has been an issue for him this season. This is not an easy team to get off to a good start against, but he needs to be that guy that can come out and just mow them down quickly, set that tone. It cannot be, guys, I know I have my good stuff. I know we're down 2-0, but I know I have my good stuff. Trust me. It has to be right from the word go. We see he has his good stuff, and the Blue Jays are able to roll from there. Also, the other one, this feels kind of obvious. Vlad needs to have his moment in this World Series. He had it in the American League Championship Series with the home run, with the sun setting on T-Mobile Park, and that just absolutely movie-esque shot that he had. He had it several times over in the divisional round against the New York Yankees with the bat tosses and Yankees lose and stuff like that. Like he has had those. He hasn't had a lot in this World Series offensively. Defensively, obviously last night with the great throw to third base. And I guess he does have the run home and hammering down on home plate and getting the team fired up after that. But he needs to take control of this baseball game offensively. This needs to be a big Vlad Guerrero Jr. game. We don't know what is happening around him in the lineup at the moment that I am recording this, but he needs to have a big day today for Toronto to get into this series. So I think you need your best guy to be your best guy. And I don't want to say he needs to earn his $500 million contract because A, how could you? It's a lot of money. But B, if you can, he has already. He has been spectacular in this postseason, and nothing that happens in this World Series is going to change it. But he needs to have his World Series moment now. Shohei, I'm not saying get on base 9 times like Shohei did, but he needs to have his Shohei game. He needs to be the one who's the best player in this game, and we're all talking about him going into game number 4. Admittedly, I know I said yesterday that yesterday didn't feel like a must-win, right up until it did. But it does feel over this morning. Like, walking around, it's like, man, like, beating this team now 3 out of 4 feels daunting. And it feels really down. But this team felt really down after losing 2 in a row in Toronto and going into Seattle. I will say the Dodgers are a different animal, but the Blue Jays have been those comeback kids all season long. This is going to have to be their biggest one. And I think getting off to a quick start tonight is going to be massive. So I don't know. I think you need to get off to that quick start here today. I'm just trying to look real quick. Do we have lineups just yet? I don't think we do. Toxic is asking, who do you lead off with if Springer can't go? And I think that's an excellent question. And I don't really know the answer to that one. I think Lucas is a pretty good bet if you can get him back into that focus of just get an on base, man. Please, could you? That would be great. There is the smallest part of me that thinks Kirk, not like, obviously not a traditional leadoff hitter, but someone you trust, someone getting on base and all of that. But if we're worried that Bo's not going to be in the lineup, I think you have to hit Kirk behind Vlad so that they can't just walk him all night long. Bo, I think, would be... I've always thought Bo would be a good leadoff hitter because of his eye at the plate and just his ability to get on base. But again, having him be able to stretch the lineup out would really help this team that much more. So I think that he is probably not the option. So it probably comes down to like Lucas, maybe Ernie Clement. I mean, none of them had great games last night. So none of these feel like awesome suggestions today. But Lucas would probably be the one that I would suggest at this particular moment in time to be the leadoff guy for Toronto. But yeah, like it does. It feels done. But Toronto has come back from it before. And I will say, if the Blue Jays can get this one, I still think they're a bad matchup for Snell. And I think they proved yesterday that they are a bad matchup for Glasnow as well. The Yamamoto part of it is really scary, which is why, like, 3-1, whatever, like that really feels done because Yamamoto, you know, he is lurking one more time in this series. But because of how Toronto did against Snell and against Glasnow, now Dodgers fans would say there's no way they're going to have that bad of an outing again, but the Jays did this to Kirby in the championship series. They can really wear those types of guys down. And when the concern is, well, if he's on, he's really on. This is a really hard Blue Jays team to be on against when you do have some of those command issues and everything like that. So I still think they stack up really well in 2 of the 3 matchups that would be remaining after game 4. You have to give yourself some wiggle room, knowing that Yamamoto is still lurking and just not being able to assume that he's going to have a bit of a banana peel game. But you still have... Yeah, you have Bieber, Gausman, you Savage, with a chance to win the World Series. That's how you're set up. It feels like a decent spot, but you have to get this one tonight if you are the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's the World Series talk for this one today. If I missed anything or you disagree with me, if you're watching live, throw it in the chat. If you're watching after the fact, let me know down in the comments below. Is this a must-win? It does. I think it's obviously a must-win for the Blue Jays. What's the key to success for both sides in this game today? Let me know in the chat or in the comments section below. And if you're listening, get at me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Go check me out on all of those places. But it is now time to get to the fantasy football talk. Jonna in the chat has asked a fantasy football question, has been waiting very patiently. So let's get into some fantasy football conversations. Jonna is asking in the chat, who should I pick up with Hurts on bye? Stafford, Lawrence, Goff, or Stroud? We are going to do our waiver wire discussion here in a second, but for the waiver wire that we do, the cutoff is 35%, and none of these guys meet that criteria. So let's take a look at who we like more this week, based off of the options here for Jonna. Again, who should I pick up with Hurts on a bye? Stafford, Lawrence, Goff, or CJ Stroud? So let's look at what those quarterbacks have to deal with this week. Trevor Lawrence is going up against the Raiders. I would have a hard time thinking that someone's going to have a better matchup than that. You have Stroud against the Broncos, so he's out for me. The Detroit Lions are taking on the Vikings. Yeah. And Matthew Stafford is in action against against the Saints. Man, that Raider matchup is so tasty and such a great opportunity. So I can see the argument for the Lawrence side, but this Rams offense is clicking at a higher level than Jacksonville is right now. We saw that in the game overseas. So I would probably go Stafford. It's in a matchup against the Saints. You can throw on the Saints all day. You can throw on the Saints. And with Adams and everyone else that they have rolling in that offense, we'll see about the health status of everyone there. But Stafford just feels like the safer bet right now to be able to go out and light things up against New Orleans. I am sure Lawrence is going to have a good day against the Raiders. I'm very sure Lawrence is going to have a good day against the Raiders. So if you wanted to make a claim on both, I would understand it. Right now, Stafford would be my priority over Lawrence, Goff, or Stroud. Goff or Stroud are no's to me. Stroud for sure is a no against Denver. Like just that. I get that the offensive line looked good against San Francisco, but that's a banged up San Francisco defense. This Broncos defense can be dynamite. And I think they're going to give the Texans a lot of problems, especially that struggling offensive line. So I would have Stroud a no-go. The Vikings defense isn't as tough as I thought they would be this year, but I still think there is significantly less resistance for Stafford and Lawrence. So I would rank them kind of in the order you put them in here, Jonna. I would go Stafford, Lawrence, Goff, and Stroud as my, I would rank them in that order. But Stroud would be the one that I would, Stafford would be the one that I would go with as my first priority, and then Lawrence after that. But if you have a couple of players that you don't mind dropping, I would try to make a claim for both just so that you don't miss out on either one of them. And then if you end up with both, and you're in a good spot. But just make sure you get one of those two would be my suggestion for that. So keep the fantasy football questions coming. If you're watching live, throw them in the chat. If you're watching after the fact, we do these live on the Waiver Wire show. We do it Tuesday, but we also stream live on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays during the NFL season. So you can get your fantasy football questions in all the time with us here. But if you missed it and you have any questions about it, let me know down in the comment section below. So that is one specific waiver wire bid that can help someone out. Let's go a little bit more broad. Who are the players we should be targeting on the waiver wire this week? We've survived the bipocalypse. Now it's just a bunch of injuries that we have to figure out. Here are the must-add players for fantasy football this week. Waiver wire time. It is going into week 9 in the NFL and in the fantasy football season. So we're getting down to crunch time. We need to start winning these games with the playoffs now on the horizon. And so we can't just, bye week, got us. Nope, can't be doing that. This is now a time to step our game up. Let's go to the waiver wire. And I give this big, you know what? We need to step up. We need these wins. This is a tough one, admittedly, to give out. Jonna is in a league where Stafford and Lawrence and Stroud and Goff were available. That's fantastic. Pick all of them up ahead of this one. But our waiver wire target, because we use the cutoff of 35% in Yahoo leagues, it's Tua. So hopefully you're set at quarterback this week, is what I'm saying. It's not ideal. But, I mean, look, they just had a pretty good game against Atlanta, and they are facing a Ravens defense that has struggled this season. So I don't look at this as the oh shit moment that it maybe would be if we had to start Tua Tagovailoa at our quarterback spot. I think that because of the matchup and because we've maybe got a little bit of momentum rolling here, I think that Tua is probably a decent play for you this week. But hopefully there are some other options that you can go with. At wide receiver, there's three. It is first Alec Pierce, 15% owned with the Indianapolis Colts. He has been targeted 19 times in the last 3 weeks. He hasn't really had a bust game this season. Like there have been very few league winning weeks. It's been a lot of 5 to 7, but he has some big play potential and he has a good matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. We just saw Green Bay get their offense right against Pittsburgh. I know that the Steelers for forever have a reputation of a stingy defense that is really difficult to play against, but that ain't this team at all. You can throw on these guys very successfully. And so I think Alec Pierce has a good chance to have a good day and help you out in fantasy. Also 15% owned, it's Malik Washington with Miami. He's been targeted at least 5 times in every game but 2 this season. And again, they have a really good matchup against the Ravens here. So I think Malik Washington, maybe this isn't a league winner type of a move. This is just, I think, a relatively safe floor for him and a player that you can plug into your lineup, just going to keep the chains moving and help you out in your matchups here this week. Pierce, I think, has a bit more league winning upside, or week winning upside, I should say. Washington is just getting us through the week. This next one, I probably should have put number 1 because this is probably the main priority of the week, depending on where you're at. But it's Christian Watson with the Green Bay Packers. And if you watched my fantasy football content last year, you'll know I'm a fan of this guy. And maybe it didn't produce the way that I thought it did, or thought it would a season ago, and then he got hurt. But he looked solid in a return to the lineup for the Green Bay Packers. He is a high-level receiver, and if you look at the fantasy matchup for Green Bay the rest of the way, it's actually kind of filled with some defenses that you can take advantage of, including the Carolina Panthers, who they play this week. And so you look at it after that, it's the Eagles, who are a good defense, but you can throw on them. Then you got the Giants, the Vikings, who we're not really all that afraid of, the Lions, who have been giving up some points, the Bears, that's a defense we can throw on, Denver, that's tough. But then Bears, Ravens, Vikings to close out the season. So fantasy playoffs, it is Broncos, Bears, Ravens. And Christian Watson, the problem is that you are guessing along with where the volume goes in a really potentially high level offense that is the Green Bay Packers. And there are some weeks where it kills you because it's, for whatever reason, the defense is taking Watson away and now Dobbs is the main target. Well, now it's Golden. Now it's, that has always been the frustration with fantasy receivers with Green Bay. But Watson, I still think, has the potential to kind of outshine the rest of them. And he has a connection, obviously, with Jordan Love. This is an ad that helps you not just this week, but for the rest of the season. So Christian Watson is absolutely someone who we should be picking up in basically any league and in any format right now. At running back, Tyjae Spears, 32% owned. 12 opportunities last week, and he gets into the end zone. I know it's not a good offense, but fantasy points can come from not good offenses. And Spears, I have said this for weeks. I am assuming this is the last week our guy's ending up on our waiver wire segment. He is just too good to keep ending up at our threshold below 35%. I think he's a talented kid. I think he's going to get more and more opportunities as he gets healthier, as he gets back into playing shape, and as the Titans want to see what they have and help out their young quarterback try to not get another coach fired. So I think that the volume is certainly going to be there for one Tyjae Spears, and he should be owned in way more leagues than 32%. Then it's Bam Knight, 20% owned. Led the Cardinals in rushing last game, probably dropped a lot because of a lot of buys. It's a great matchup against the Cowboys on Monday night, and one that I think he can really take advantage of. So if we were relying on, say, a Cam Scadaboo or someone like that, I think these are a couple of really good replacements to kind of fill that void in your league. This next one's a bit of a luxury play. It is Tank Bigsby. He is owned in 17% of leagues playing for the Eagles. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is the guy in Philadelphia. But I do think that this last game was a bit of a course correct for the Eagles to get them back on track, understanding where their strengths are, and that's being a run-first football team. And so with that, if something happens to Saquon, or if they recognize that maybe we shouldn't be running Saquon into the ground and we have a viable backup here, Tank Bigsby, I think, is going to get a lot of opportunities with this team, especially if something happens to Saquon. And we already saw a bit of a hint of that when he goes down with a hamstring injury in week number 8. If you can afford a stash on a bye, this is someone who I think has the potential to be a steal if anything opens up for him. And I am assuming that more opportunities are going to come his way as this season kind of winds down. The last one, bit more of a home run swing, Emmanuel Wilson with Green Bay, 5% owned. I don't think he'll hit double digits again this week or at any point this season. But again, a decent handcuff, a decent stash, bit more of a speed option in that Green Bay offense. And with Josh Jacobs just getting bottled up in that game, it was interesting to see that they just went with Wilson and let him go out there, change the pace a little bit, and have some success against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So again, don't pick him up assuming that we're getting a touchdown and 60 yards every week, but I think you can pick him up again in a Bigsby role where he's going to get a little bit in the offense, but if something happens to the main guy, we're really trusting this running back in our lineups every single week. And then it is Juwan Johnson at tight end. Our first tight end, Juwan Johnson, with the New Orleans Saints. 32% owned, 15 targets in the last 2 weeks. Not many other options on this team. It's a tough matchup against the Rams, but of the tight ends that are available, I think he has the easiest path to volume. He is solid and not a league winner, but again, just going to keep the chains moving for your team. And then I have Theo Johnson, 24% owned with the Giants. I think the kid's pretty good. Only 4 targets last week. This is a beat-up offense, and I think he's solid. You have a relatively-ish difficult matchup with San Francisco. We'll talk about them in a second. But then after that, it's Chicago and Green Bay. So a couple of teams that you've been able to pass on this year. I think Theo Johnson, again, he is a young tight end, but tight ends are a really good safety blanket for rookie quarterbacks, especially ones that have just lost their best wide receiver and running back. So I think Theo Johnson gets a little bit more in the underneath game to help them kind of keep the chains moving a little bit and keep them ahead of the sticks with the injury to Cam Scadaboo. And then our streaming defenses for the week, I have 2. First, it is San Francisco. They are 20% owned. I have them going up against the Giants. It's a beat-up Giants offense, like we've talked about. San Francisco's beat up as well, and it was a bit of a concerning performance against the Houston Texans, but CJ Stroud ain't walking through that door, right? So I think that I will take Saleh against a rookie quarterback and take my chances there. Also, there's just not a lot of great streaming options this week. The other one is Jacksonville against the Raiders, 8% owned. I would imagine Jacksonville, the combination of a bad game against the Rams and then a bye, that's why that number is so low. I think it's an okay defense against a turnover-prone and brutal Raiders offense. I think this defense isn't that bad, so I think it's a pretty good pickup if you want to roll with Jacksonville this week as the streaming defense. So, again, to recap, our quarterback this week is Tua Tagovailoa, 19% owned with Miami. 3 receivers to look at: Alec Pierce from the Colts, Malik Washington with the Dolphins, and Christian Watson for Green Bay. Our running backs this week that we're looking at: Tyjae Spears and Bam Knight. These are players that will help you this week and for future weeks as well. Tank Bigsby and Emmanuel Wilson, a little bit more of the luxury purchases and the players that we're going to roll with if we can afford some stashes and some handcuffs. At tight end, Juwan Johnson, 32% owned with the Saints, and Theo Johnson, 24% owned with the Giants. And 2 streaming defenses to look at this week: the San Francisco 49ers against the Giants and the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Vegas Raiders. San Francisco, 20% owned, and Jacksonville, 8% owned. Again, we're going to do more fantasy stuff throughout the week. Kind of soft launched it the other day, or last week, a couple weeks ago. Either way, we're going to do something each week now called the Waiver Wire Rebound. And so going to tape it on Wednesdays and then play it as part of the live stream on Thursday, but going to look at the players that were most dropped in the waiver wire and the players that would still meet our qualifications, so that if we missed out on someone, if we still have a position of need, or if there's a gem that we can unearth, we're going to do that. So we're going to look at that coming up on Thursday. Also changing how we're doing the previews on Couch Potato Diary, because your boy's got ADD and he loves changing how he does things. So, instead of the fantasy preview and just the real game betting preview happening on the same video, the same stream, the same podcast, Thursdays are going to be the fantasy football preview episode because we're doing it live. Get the live questions in. You can chat away with us there. And then Friday is going to be the game by game breakdown, the more X's and O's looking at each game. Just going to give people some help on what they want to watch a bit more specifically than just a broader thing. So Thursday live stream is going to be a big fantasy football day. And so get all your fantasy football questions in there. If you can't wait, let me know in the comments section below if you're watching this after the fact or if you missed out. Just pop back in. This video will be up not too long from now and throw any questions you have in the comments there. And if you're listening after the fact, for the second day in a row, and I've punched my laptop, if you're listening after the fact, again, let me know on social media. You can ask me your questions on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. And again, trying to grow the audience here with Couch Potato Diary. So if you could hit that notification bell so you know every time that we're going live, that would help me out a lot. It just pushes the show out to more people, shows that people are interested, and you don't want to miss any of this because we cover a lot of ground on Couch Potato Diary. That is going to do it for the show today. Hour and a half stream. I think pretty good. We got our misery out. We got our frustrations out, all of that. So I don't anticipate there being a live stream tomorrow, but if something wild happens in this game or something like that, we may do a bit of a stream. So again, keep it locked on my socials to figure that out, but can guarantee Thursday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time will be the next stream for Couch Potato Diary. And again, doing that live on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. If you are watching live, thank you so much for tuning in. I do have a tip jar. It is in the link in the description or on Twitch and Kick. There's a panel for it. If you've, again, just watching, listening is support enough. But if you're finding some value in this show, I would really appreciate it if you could just throw a tip my way. Or if you're watching on Twitch, hit that subscribe button. Getting the followers up. Would love to get that subscriber number up as well. But again, just tuning in, hanging out with me through some of the ads and all of that means the world to me as well. If you're listening to this after the fact, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. If you want to listen after the fact, we are available on podcast form, on Spotify, and on Apple. And if you're watching this on YouTube, again, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, the thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. Share this with your friends, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Anything you disagreed with, anything you really agreed with, or think that I missed, let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. We're always presented by Sea of Dead. Get the hanging in the dome, chilling with Jerome shirts right now. seaofdead403.ca, and might be another long one tonight. So head over to swiftenergy.gg and use the code PK Primetime for 25% off. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.